That's all right. So, we'll just get back to it. So, where we were was on this rather ridiculous. Well, that's going to be a little bit annoying for the YouTube, but that's all right. So, where we were was why do we need to reset? So, the pause during lockdown created by the pandemic resulted in 7% decrease in global emissions in 2020, which is nothing. That's fucking nothing. All right, so the UN states that we need a decrease of 7.6% every year until 2030 to avoid climate and ecological disaster. Says a retard. Says someone who has no idea how the world works. Says someone who doesn't understand how carbon, how algae in the sea works, how these things will actually balance each other out, and the likelihood that we will never have any issues no matter how much fuel we burn. And isn't that interesting, too, that they are like, you know what we did last year? We need a little bit more. Even though last year was ridiculous on almost all fronts. And I can't believe that it was only 7.6 or 7% decrease in global emissions. Because what that means is that America, which seemingly did almost nothing, and a lot of other European places, which seemingly almost did nothing in comparison to their normal amounts of commerce and movement with their own vehicles, or at least, didn't impact anything. 7% is nothing. That's not a huge percentage of the fucking pie. If you got a pie and then, you bought the whole thing and someone gave you 7% of it, you'd be like, this is not acceptable. So don't tell me that 7% is, a huge amount. It's not. The 93% that everyone else is doing without us even noticing, because I don't know how is that possible? How that global emissions didn't go down by 20%, some ridiculous number. 20% isn't even high enough. Because most of the world that, we don't see probably just went on doing whatever they were doing. Well, maybe they went on and did it more at certain times, Who knows? This is a bad starting point, so let's just try to continue on. Okay. This means we need to maintain the same decrease every year as if we were living in lockdown. Look at the way that they kind of describe that, too. Isn't that just sinister? Is an interesting way to describe it. Sinister. The challenge is that we emerge from the pandemic and the pressure to go back to business as usual will intensify. But people don't want to go back. Who says that? Who are these fucking people? People who had jobs and got a bunch of free money, but they don't realize that, not everybody got all of that free money. A bunch of people got excessive amounts of unemployment. They got what I would say was excessive anyway. Was it excessive? I don't know. But it's fairly excessive amounts of unemployment, making it so that their jobs were almost moot, or giving them very little in comparison that would make a justification for why they would have to go to work and not make $2,400 a month. That was such a ridiculous amount for a while that people were making for being unemployed. Alright, so yeah, that's why. But people don't want to go back. You know what? Most people probably do. And eventually they will, even if they don't. They'll realize the kind of inaneness of doing nothing on a daily basis. And they'll want to have something that makes them useful to society. Only 23% of the UK public believe following lockdown, advertising should encourage people to consume, shop, and fly like before lockdown. One Pulse survey of 1,000 respondents representative sample of UK public age 16 plus. Did they go out to like a high school and ask people, hey, do you think people should go back to the same way they were before lockdown? 1,000 people. What a horrible, horrible that's a terrible representative sample size. 1,000 people for something as important as how you should do, how existence should work, how existence should function. Whether it should be the way that we've done it forever, or if somehow we've made some kind of good choice now by all forcing everyone to do nothing and to just be hermits. Like, what the hell? All right. 77% believe it is the industry's responsibility to encourage people to behave more sustainably, like during lockdown. Believe it's the industry's responsibility. It's not the industry, whoever this industry is, to encourage people to buy their things because they're selling them because it's a capitalist society and they want to make money. They shouldn't encourage them to buy food and eat it and then buy, another appetizer. No, they should encourage people to behave more sustainably. Well, who the fuck is talking like this? No one thinks like that. That's why this is a bullshit survey that you probably did on 16 plus. That's why it had to say 16 plus. Because, you couldn't get the right, answers out of people that were over the age of 21 or 18 even, probably. Right now, we have a small window of opportunity to reset and shape the future we want. Who has that opportunity? Who are you that's trying to do this, you fucking psychos? Who is it? What are you talking about? All right, so what is the Great Reset? The Great Reset is a creative industry movement to embed the positive environmental shifts that have happened during lockdown as the new normal. This just makes me want to put people's heads on pikes. Makes me want to put their heads on a pike. You can't say this kind of shit. You can't say that you want the positive environmental shifts that happened during lockdown. Everyone wants a positive environmental shift. That's fine. So make things be more environmentally friendly by the way that we use them. Have that be the way that we function to make things more environmentally friendly. You don't have to restrict all of reality. It's the same thing as people who are trying to talk about COVID and say, it's the beds. The beds are a problem. We have too few beds. We have too few ICU beds. We have too little capacity. Build another wing. Buy some place right next door and build it out into, an ICU only area. Like literally buy an office building. I don't understand. You can't give me these kind of excuses because they don't hold water. We want a positive environmental shift, sure. But you're trying to say that there is a new normal already. You see the way that it's being addressed as there's a new normal. There's no new normal. There's only normal, and we're living in it as we exist at all times. So there's no new normal. You don't get to change the way that I exist or have existed for all eternity, and you won't. That's how eternity works. So our industry has power and influence, but we need lots of people to choose to use it. We must grab this opportunity to help shape a society that puts mankind and our planet's needs first. From someone who has no idea what they're talking about, definitely. Someone who has never tried to refurbish an area, has never worked cutting trees down to remove the excess, dead trees. They've never gone and removed the years of old pine cones to make it so that the forest floor is functional again. They're the kind of people who read in books that know that's part of, the forest floor, and that's, they don't realize that it's actually been choking it for years and years because it can't disintegrate because there isn't enough water. So no. If you don't have a clue what the planet's needs are, you're going to say stupid things like, we need to have society do that. You're the kind of person who will say, I shouldn't use as much water as I want because there isn't enough water in the world. Okay, well, but the water that you're using is related to rainfall and snowpack and the amount of water that's flowing only in your area. So there's no way that the water that you're having, if it's fresh, is ever going to be making its way to India. It's never going to be making its way to somewhere else where there's no fresh water. They need to drill their own wells. That's how that works. So never imagine that you're taking the water from someone else. You're not. You need to move somewhere where there's less people if there's not enough water, because, that's going to be a problem endemic onto itself. To do this, we need to reset ourselves. A lot of reset words in here. To become agents of change, we need to become zealots, inquisitors of change. We need to become evil, vile, death dealers of change. Not just passive receivers of briefs. We need to go out there and cut some necks. We can't just be fancy little receivers of briefs. We need to be agents of change and death and destruction. That's what it sounds like they're trying to say. And I know that they don't realize it. But, you only have so many views, and that is that you shouldn't pass your beliefs on to others, or you should push your beliefs on to others. And you can be in the middle where you go up to their door like, the Mormons try to do, and they say, hey, can we talk to you? And if you say no, they walk away. If you say yes, and they talk to you. All right, so there's the in-between of being an agent of change and a receiver of briefs. But you can't be past that, which is what I feel like you're trying to say. We need to start burning it down because it's not got a good enough carbon footprint. It's not like all the fire is going to be a carbon footprint or a problem. Reset our work so what we create promotes sustainable values, attitudes, and behaviors. From someone who has never had a farm, who has never done anything with compost, who has no idea how to do a grinding mill, shredding compost style, sewage plant. Someone who has no fucking clue about that. We need to reset our work. You don't know where we need to start, so don't say that we need to do it, because I know at least some of the things we need to start, and you are just saying we need to have more sustainable values. Well, it's cute. These are cute words. Say something. Okay, anyway. Reset our impact by reevaluating what we measure and celebrate as success. That's insane. That's insane. Something like success is already a non-real thing. They're trying to make it into something even more subjective and even less objective than it already is. Because sometimes you can say success is a very objective and a very obvious thing. I want to throw a basketball into a hoop. I threw it up there, it went in the hoop. I'm successful. So them trying to recreate it as only subjective is a very disturbing idea. Because what we measure and celebrate as success should be very obvious in some instances. And in other instances, maybe what you're saying is what we celebrate as being valuable. Not as being successful, because the successful person can buy a Ferrari that has no value to society aside from himself and the people who made it, who get money off of him for making it. But that doesn't make him any less successful in the ability to create money for himself through whatever means it was, even if it was even simple inheritance. All right, what can you do today from where you stand? I couldn't care less, but look at this fucking woman they have here. This disgusting creature here that's showing that she has no brain. She's got birds flying by her. She's got her eyes covered. Gross. There have been 3 phases to the Great Reset campaign to date. The first phase launched on the 2nd of July with the film, website, and white paper. Phase 2 focused on building the community through gatherings and securing pledges throughout July. Phase 3 launched on the 3rd of August with the creative brief with the winning creative work live in September and October. The next phase focuses on resetting our impact with the development of new effectiveness metric, eco-effectiveness. Someone who is on Adderall made up that word. They made up that word. Somebody's who is on Adderall made up the word eco-effectiveness while they were tweaking out of their minds because they're stupid-ass idiots. All right. This is the missing measurement needed so that the advertising industry can take full responsibility for the carbon impact of its work. What? The open source framework seeks to quantify emissions driven by advertising and identifies ways to maximize the return on CO2 Wow. Is this some great double speak madness or what? Here's the pledge if you are out of your mind. The Great Reset campaign throughout July focused on building community members with a series of gatherings. Our community is now over 1,000 members strong. 1,000 insane people. And many people and agencies have pledged their support. Thank you. Official pledging is now closed. But if you missed it and feel you can contribute your time or influence, please contact us at hello@purposedisruptors.org. purposedisruptors.org. How gross. It's right in your face, isn't it? purposedisruptors.org. All right. How can I deepen my understanding? I think that we might be done with whatever this one is. Let's try to move on. Okay. The coronavirus pandemic, Great Reset theory, and a false vaccine claim debunked. Justin Trudeau. Here's what we've been fact-checking this week, for what it's worth. Justin Trudeau and the Great Reset. We start with a revival of the baseless conspiracy theory known as the Great Reset, which claims a group of world leaders orchestrated the pandemic to take control of the global economy. Let's say they didn't orchestrate the pandemic. We don't have to say that they did that. Let's just say that they're using it in order to completely dismantle things, and that is what's actually occurred. The conspiracy theory has its origins in a genuine plan entitled the Great Reset. Is this not an amazing thing? These people are willing to lie through their teeth, literally saying that it's a baseless conspiracy theory, while at the next moment saying that it's based on a genuine plan titled The Great Reset, and that the conspiracy theory just kind of says exactly what the Great Reset says. What a strange and interesting world we live in. So weird. The organizers of an annual conference for high-profile figures from politics and business. The plan explores how countries might recover from the economic damage caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Is that what the plan's about? Is that what the Great Reset's about? Why would it have to be a Great Reset if we're recovering? Why are we resetting things if we're recovering? Shouldn't it be the Great Recovery? All right. The Great Reset equals the New World Order. COVID is no accident. It didn't come from bat soup. COVID 1984 is the blueprint for humanity. No evidence. The pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. Klaus Schwab. Okay. So let's just break down this little, what I guess is a meme-like post, huh? COVID's no accident. It didn't come from bat soup. It didn't, for one thing, it came from a pangolin, right? So, it wouldn't have been bat soup. It would have been a pangolin soup of some type, right? Something along those lines. Pangolin soup didn't have to be soup. I don't really know how you eat pangolin. Okay. So, the Great Reset equals the New World Order. Let's break that down. Is that not right? Does that make sense? Well, the New World Order is the attempt to, recreate the world in a new world order. It's literally trying to make a new order for the world. If you do a great reset, wouldn't that be making a new order for the world by proxy? Now, you can say to yourself, well, maybe these aren't the same people who were talking about the New World Order in the 90s and the early 2000s. And you could say, okay, well, maybe you're right. But you have to, at the very least, say that it is to have a great reset from one world order to another is occurring on some basis based on at least their language. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's all the exact same players, but there is the attempt to put into place a new world order of some type, even if it's not the players that were doing the new world order. We've broken that down enough, I believe. All right. So COVID's no accident, didn't come from bat soup. All right, so at least came from a pangolin if we're to believe that it came from the wet market at all. Now, a lot of people say that that's complete fabrication at this point, and these are scientists and people within the know in society. They say that it definitely did come from a laboratory, and that the laboratory somehow had gotten it initially was that somehow maybe they were testing on animals. The animals were brought into the wet market for food, and it went that way. That may be the case. It could be that it was a laboratory and it was spread intentionally by the governments of China and America, or China or America, or a third party that's doing it for their own benefit, or a lot of ors here. But it's very possible that it's no accident. And it's very possible that it didn't come from bat soup. It's almost truly didn't come from bat soup, because it was a pangolin, I believe, that they were eating, not bat. It was a bat that bit the pangolin. Isn't that the way that this all worked out? Yeah. So, and then they mention, the book 1984 for a moment, as, a blueprint for humanity. And hard to fight that. That's kind of what's being played out in unfortunate form. So, the WEF recovery plan has been interpreted as sinister, first by fringe conspiracy theory groups on social media, and then by prominent conservative commentators, prompting tens of thousands of interactions across Facebook and Twitter. It started trending globally on Twitter last week when a video of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at a UN meeting saying the pandemic provided an opportunity for a reset went viral. This sparked fresh claims from people within Canada and further afield that a cabal of global leaders is using the pandemic. I mean, isn't it obvious that because they're all, talking like the Sinclair, media group and saying build back better, together in this weird way? All right. Using the pandemic to introduce a range of damaging socialist and environmental policies, which I agree with. When asked about conspiracy theories at the end of the week, Mr. Trudeau said, I think we're in a time of anxiety, where people are looking for reasons for things that are happening to them. We're seeing a lot of people fall prey to disinformation. So, not addressing it at all. He just says, when you're anxiety riddled, you might be more likely to read into something that's not real. Real good, real smart, real nice way to just dodge it without saying a goddamn thing. Video from August, which now close to 3 million views on YouTube, believes only Donald Trump can thwart this secret plot, which uses COVID-19 to bring the U.S. economy to its knees so the reset can begin and people will be begging for vaccines. That's strange. Why not link that video if they are mentioning it at all? So that people can see and see how stupid it is, if it is stupid. I don't know about using the U.S. or there is an obvious use of COVID-19 to do things which are completely and totally outside of the scope of normal governmental power. So it's not that much of a conspiracy theory to say that, COVID-19 at the very least has been used by the U.S. governors in some of the states to tyrannize their people in ways that is completely unreasonable and unconstitutional and outside of logical, understandable discourse. So I don't know about Donald Trump being the only one that can thwart this secret plot. I feel like that's a little bit facetious. I feel like the people who thwart the secret plot are people that go out without a mask on. And literally don't, fall victim to the exact same mentality that everyone else has, believing that death is somehow something they can avoid at all costs. That there's some way to maneuver past that point in their experience, because that's what this is really about. It's not really, the whole COVID thing, it's really about the fear of death that they're taking advantage of. There's very little else to take advantage of in it. So, let's try to move a little bit quicker here. As this is BBC. This is similar to a French documentary, which also refers to a secret global plot, has gone viral. Same video promotes unfounded medical advice, misinformation, and conspiracy theories about coronavirus. According to who? You? Or who did you have watch it that said this was absolutely and totally unfounded in every way? How do you know that it's misinformation? You did all of the research on it? Over more than 2.5 hours, the film, entitled Hold Up, promises to reveal the truth about COVID-19. Instead, it promotes a slew of previously debunked claims, including allegations that wearing masks is dangerous. Well, wearing a cloth mask is definitely dangerous. It's been shown to not be useful by research in, I think it was around 2007, that showed that healthcare workers that are using anything other than N95 or disposable medical masks are more likely to have bacterial infections than otherwise. That is to say, if they're using cloth masks that they are using over and over again in any kind of capacity. So, wearing masks is dangerous. Global elites somehow planned the pandemic. It's not that they planned the pandemic, it's that they threw up all of this stuff onto the media because they own the media and made it so that the pandemic seemed much more grand than it was. And it created a system of scared and panicky, anxiety-filled people who dictated to the government that they wanted to be locked down before realizing what they were saying. Kind of. That's what I feel like. I saw some people who were in the school field, they were teachers or principals, and they were calling for the lockdown of their schools. They were calling for the lockdown of their school districts, not recognizing that, those things may never be opened again because they may not want to, It's got nothing to do with your own anxiety that you had for a small amount of time, even though you didn't do any research into it or find out what was going on. No. Yeah, so, like its predecessor, Hold Up is gathering momentum. It has been watched more than 1 million times. I think at least No, they didn't link to it again. YouTube says the video does not violate its misinformation policies, although it says it's limited spread in accordance with its rules on tackling content that could misinform users in harmful ways. So it doesn't misinform people according to their policies, but they decide to limit it anyway. Very strange. So, in India, so we're going to move on. BBC is obviously very, very pro the Great Reset. Okay, John Gary, Great Reset will happen. As many of you know, we've been following closely my work on the Great Reset movement. This stunning proposal to usher in a completely blah, blah, blah has received blah, 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 blah from the mainstream press. Not nearly enough attention. Yeah, okay, that's true. Small group of prominent writers, reporters, commentators leading the charge, including Glenn Beck, Chris Talgo, Don Kendall, the Heartland Institute, Andrew Stufford, and National Review, and a few others. The Great Reset is, without question, the most important issue facing the United States today, and probably the most important issue facing the country since the fall of the Soviet Union. I used to think the rise of socialists like AOC, Bernie Sanders reached that level, but now I think it's clear that globalists' Great Reset movement, which also has very strong collectivist and socialist elements to it, is much more worrisome. Yes. Huge corporations and very wealthy people working together against your government and in league with what they believe is the best ideals of the world is much, much worse than a couple of socialists in Congress. Yeah. What, are you stupid? I can't believe that took you... Alright. The Great Reset has much more powerful supporters, yes, it does, than a couple of Congress people. It's not a populist movement. In fact, as the comments appear below will show, it largely rejects populism, instead favoring increasing the authority and influence of international ruling elites and billionaire investors, yes, rather than deride massive multiple blah, blah, blah. Yes, despite the gargantuan amount of evidence revealing the truth about the Great Reset agenda, the media has largely ignored it. Why is that, you think? It's not like they're completely owned and controlled, and that somehow you guys all got duped into believing them again, even after their massive lying that was endless and endless, all the way in from 2012 to 2016 to now. They've just endless lies and madness. Oh, so you're telling me that somehow that's finally come to roost. Yeah, and when the media had spent time discussing it, it had usually been to deride people like me for pushing a conspiracy theory about globalism. The proof is crystal clear, however. You don't need to take my word for it. You can read mounds of quotes from Great Reset supporters indicating what their plans for the future are. So I guess this guy's at least got, his head on, right? So let's see. The following transcript is from Kerry's most important comments. I urge you to read through all the quotes as they provide a tremendous amount of insight. All right, let's go. Host Boris Brande. Look at me get all fancy just because his first name is a very odd name. President of the World Economic Forum. Are you expecting too much too soon from the new president, or is he going to deliver first day on this topic? Kerry responds by thanking the host and says this. The answer to your question is no, you're not expecting too much, and yes, the Great Reset will happen. And I think it will happen with greater speed and with greater intensity than a lot of people might imagine. In effect, the citizens of the United States have just done a Great Reset. We've done a Great Reset, and it was a record level of voting. What astounds me is that as many people still voted for the level of chaos and breach of law and order and breaking the standards. And I think the underlying reason for that, George, is something that everyone has to examine. I think Europe has to look at that with Brexit and the rising nationalist populism, nationalistic populism. Okay, so he just is misspeaking, it looks like. Which is really one of the priorities we all have to address. You can't dismiss it. It has to be listened to. It has to be understood. I don't know why all of these are important. I mean, it seems like the most important is, him just saying that the Great Reset's going to happen. But, let's see. Is there, I believe no government is fundamentally going to make the climate crisis go away. Government's best effort is going to be to create a structure which will make it possible for certain things to happen. And the next opportunity for that structure to be fully defined is Glasgow. Now, I don't believe, and I think I know Joe Biden believes this, it's not enough just to rejoin Paris, the Paris Climate Accords, which is a horrible idea. For the United States, it's not enough for us to just do the minimum of what Paris requires. Oh my God, this guy is beyond a neocon. I can't believe he's a Democrat. Alright, so if you'd like to go and read this is on redstate.com. John Kerry, Great Reset will happen. God, it's disturbing. It's very disturbing. I mean, he is on board with everything that's stupid for us. Alright, so here's, I think, someone who's incredibly against it, but maybe a little bit less centered than the Red State person. The Great Reset, you will have less than 1 year. The Great Reset is scheduled for 2021, according to YouTube creator Richie from Boston. What? Why not just say his full name, or is his YouTube creator name Richie from Boston? It's kind of a funny name, I guess. All right. So far, he's been spot on about the coronavirus hoax and why the elites are using it, but the Great Reset will be devastating for humanity's freedom. It's important we do not consent or use their currency. When they do the Great Reset, we have to start standing up for ourselves. The elites do not own this earth, and we do not need permission to be on it. Well, I mean, none of this is wrong, but it's a very high-handed version of, the world, I think, because you shouldn't even have to say that. I mean, it's pretty obvious. They will not stop until we are completely dependent on government, making accepting their tyranny easy. Unless you break free from the system and stop using their money, you will be stuck in a position of being forced into deeper enslavement. All right. This is an interesting, attempt to make some pretty... it's not like this isn't wrong. It's just very heavy-handed. They're getting you ready for a second lockdown. If Americans even consider you for one moment locking themselves in, putting up with this bullshit all over again, you deserve to be the biometrically coerced slaves that you're going to be, says Richie. Say Richie. See, this is done by someone who is, really making the argument for the Great Reset by being so stupid when opposing it, because people will no longer look into it. Alright. Americans are already enslaved and were long before this pandemic surfaced, but the willingness to fasten the chains around their own necks has been what surprised me the most. To be honest, at 3:36, Richie says he can decipher the occultic message coming from Christine Lagarde, the president of the European Central Bank. According to her occult numerology, the Great Reset, one world digital currency, will happen in 2021. That means you have 1 year, give or take, to prepare yourself. If you accept and use this new currency, you will be owned permanently. Oh my gosh, this is really, really quite heavy-handed. Heavy-handed. If this was, in a book, you'd be like, "Oh man, this guy really needs to learn some subtlety here. This is really heavy-handed." All right, the elites have already come out and declared that they are going to do with a global reset. That this is not even close to a conspiracy theory. This is a fact, and they have told us. The Great Reset will be the focus of the leaders during a twin summit in January of 2021. Yes? Okay, that's true. All right. Do not be fooled. Do not be afraid. Do not stand for this, and do not consent. Blah, blah, blah. It all starts and ends with our compliance. I agree with most. See, the thing is that I'm agreeing with a lot of what this person's saying, but, they also do heavy-handed things like saying, if you put up with this bullshit, you deserve to be the coerced biometric slave, blah, blah. No. What you need to say is that you shouldn't put up with it. You just shouldn't, and you should learn when someone should tell you what to do in reality, and it's usually never. And if you are going to use their business, then you need to say, well, I can't use a mask because of HIPAA regulations. I can't, wear them, and you can't ask me why I can't wear it. So, you have to serve me because I'm disabled. It's the same thing as anything else. It's I don't know. But if we stop obeying tyrannical orders to lockdowns end. This is the big secret. So the thing is that this person isn't actually saying anything that I don't agree with. They're just, they must have compliance with the public for the New World Order to succeed. We have been trying to tell people in the beginning we do not need them. Stop depending on psychopaths and sleuths and become self-reliant. See, that's a little weird because it's not like every psychopath or everyone in a suit is a psychopath. It just makes it seem like the people who do well are somehow the bad people. And that's not necessarily true. It's the bad people who are the bad people. And when they do well, they can be very bad in comparison to someone who's small and is a bad person. That's what really scares them. Blah, blah, blah. They need us. We do not need them. Okay, so this is a really... It's interesting because, it's not like there was anything that wrong with it, except for maybe, the numerology stuff was saying that, it's all supposed to happen in 2021 and kind of, but, for the most part, yeah, you shouldn't, allow someone to impose onto you. I kind of think that's what that person was saying. All right, the Great Reset, what you need to know, and this is from the Canada Free Press. While we are fighting each other, a top-down revolution is underway. A select few elites in a small smoke-filled room are making decisions, made infinitely easier with the possibility of a Biden win. The Great Reset is a new social contract. They care not about our Constitution, or our families, or our gods. They have been hiding in plain sight. Part of this cabal is Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, George Soros, Prince Charles, and others. Unfortunately, they don't seem to have others. I wish they had others. Older participants were George Bush, Nelson Mandela. Was he really? Mikhail Gorbachev, Henry Kissinger, of course. David Rockefeller was who once commented in 1994 at the UN dinner concerning its future launching. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept a new world order. It's an interesting quote. So I think that, this is an interesting, at least they've got their head on right, because they've done the research. And the research says things like private property will be a thing of the past by 2030. Their social contract is based on certain assumptions. One, that every life form is part of a global inventory managed by benevolent states, which in turn is owned by several suddenly benevolent wealthy people via technology. So, way to put it. 2, all inventory needs to be strictly accounted for, be registered in a central database or readable by a scanner and easily ID'd, and be managed by artificial intelligence using the latest science. Any privacy will now be gone. Private property will be a thing of the past by 2030. I don't see how they could kill that many people. They'd have to kill so many people with guns. There's so many guns. Oh, and they want fewer people on the planet to be rid of the useless eaters. It would be good advice to not accept any vaccine from health organizations who believe we have too many people, one of Bill Gates' pet projects. It's true that Bill Gates is a eugenicist. Alright, the goal is to count and then efficiently manage and control all resources, including people, on an unprecedented scale with unprecedented digital precision, all while the masters keep indulging, enjoying vast patches of conserved nature, free of unnecessary sovereign peasants and their unpredictability. There's plenty of places that are really cheap, that are really far away from cities that you can buy right now. Huge patches of, what did you call it? Huge patches of conserved nature. There's plenty of it, trust me. I'll bet many of you who voted for Biden never thought about this. Buyer's remorse, anyone? The Democrat leadership and the left have bought into the program big time. They probably thought it was inevitable and wanted a seat at the table or maybe the yacht. Is it any wonder why they just watched as our cities burned, wanted to defund police, disarm Americans, use COVID as a political tool, and engage in massive election fraud? All right, so Canada Free Press, it's got their heads on pretty much right. They don't hate me, they hate you. I'm just standing in the way. Do you really think Biden won the election a third rate? Yep. So, I mean, our nation is at the center of a new world struggle for dominance. Yeah, God has raised Donald Trump for such a time as this, a strong, uncompromising. Well, I got a little bit of a God man, but, that's their business. All right, so let's keep moving on, because I think we're getting a real good understanding of how the Great Reset is viewed by a good many people. So, time. The COVID-19 pandemic has provided a unique opportunity to think about the kind of future we want. Time partnered with the World Economic Forum to ask leading thinkers to share ideas for how to transform the way we live and work. Okay. Is that it? I need to click on the actual. That it time? That it? All right. Well, good for you, time. So you can see at least how they pose it, but they don't seem to have the actual article here because they're simpletons. Or I'm a simpleton. I don't know how to access it because, well, who cares? Anyway, global elites announced Great Reset plan, and it's even more radical than the Green New Deal. So, you know what? Thank goodness that there are seemingly quite a few places that are really quite aware of what's going on. At least to say, I don't know if I agree with this. At a virtual World Economic Forum, meeting global leaders from the United Nations, United Kingdom, United States, International Monetary Fund. Oh, real great. Real great. That's a good one to have be the first non-country. And the World Economic Forum is a good one, too. And the United Nations, it's just a falsity as well, basically. And multinational corporation discussed and announced a plan to develop a great reset of the entire world economy. We have a golden opportunity to see something good from this COVID-19. Its unprecedented shockwaves may, well, wake people more receptive to big visions of change. People are going to be really poor and disenfranchised and incapable of doing anything, so we're going to be able to enforce our fucking vision on them, said Prince Charles. Not his actual quote, just allegedly. The purpose of the Great Reset is to use the coronavirus pandemic as a justification. Attendees repeatedly refer to it as an opportunity to completely overhaul the entire global economy, including the U.S. economy, to make a more equitable world and to fight climate change, which is on a numerous occasion identifies the world's next great crisis, the next way that they can bilk money out of people and out of corporations, and which are really just people that want less liability. In an article published on the World Economic Forum website, Executive Chairman Klaus Schwab said the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our society and economies, from education to social contracts and working conditions. Surely this is going to take a turn, because this literally is website's called Stopping Socialism, right? This doesn't sound like the Times, version. All right, so every country from the United States to China must participate in every industry, blah, 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 blah. Schwab wasn't the only one calling for the world reset either. Countless leaders at the event, many of whom hold incredibly influential positions in international governing bodies or in foreign governments, demanded far-reaching economic changes that sound remarkably similar to the Green New Deal, which was a big pile of horseshit, except on a global scale. Sharon Burrow, this General Secretary of the International Trade, blah, blah, said we need to use the present crisis to help rebalance so much. Who are these people, and why do they think that they really have that much power? I don't understand it. Okay, so let's get into are they gonna ever? Wow, they really are just not even gonna have any kind of opinion in here. All right, well, that's fine. Let's just go to the end here. The WEF virtual event announced the launch of the Great Reset of the world economy, but more specific policy proposals will likely be delivered at the WEF's meeting at Davos in the 2021 of January, which is happening, I don't know when. Let's hope there's an earthquake somewhere nearby. The theme of which will also be the Great Reset. The Davos event is being billed by WEF as a twin summit that will include an in-person meeting of the world leaders and a virtual meeting connecting key global governmental and business leaders in Davos with a global network in 400 cities. All right, so interestingly, because this is not only just to get some information about the Great Reset, but to see the way that it's viewed by different people. I thought that something with stopping socialism as the tag would have a little bit more of an opinion on it, but there it is. Some good information at least. I'm not gonna take away from that. We set up a new world order after World War II, Morgan said. We're now in a different world than we were then. We need to ask, what can we be doing differently? The World Economic Forum has a big responsibility in that as well. In what? You're going to come on my property and change it? What do you fucking think you are? To be pushing the reset button and looking at how to create well-being for people and for the earth. But they don't have any real clue. They're not talking about huge, compost digesters to, take your trash. They're not talking about giving people free, trash pickups. None of that. No. How the Great Reset of capitalism became an anti-lockdown conspiracy. So again, now we're at The Guardian. Though a poor diagnosis of global events, this implausible theory offers a grim insight into the public mood. This implausible theory. At a recent anti-lockdown protest, thousands of people gathered to oppose what they saw as a clandestine power grab taking place under the cover of a pandemic. Some protesters carried cardboard signs bearing the name of the alleged takeover, the Great Reset. They thought they could easily get their Great Reset, one man shouted. Little did they know the pandemic's a hoax. So you can see the way that The Guardian kind of poses it. They try to make it look as ridiculous as possible. The Great Reset, both the title of an airport book by the creative economy guru Richard Florida and a slogan favored by corporate do-gooders, is also the term for a web of ideas that has become increasingly popular among the anti-lockdown right. It's the most implausible version. This conspiracy imagines that a global elite is using COVID-19. Are you not even going to mention that the Great Reset is a real thing by the World Economic? Finally, they are. So, by the time you get to here, you're already bored and you want to click to another thing. But now they're finally going to tell you about the fact that through a poor diagnosis of the causes of global events, the Great Reset offers a grim insight into the public mood. An unlikely source provided its initial spark. On June 3rd, the UK's COVID death toll reached 50,000, and a royal family posted a video about a new sustainability drive headed by the Prince of Wales Sustainability Markets and Partners, with a World Economic Forum titled The Great Reset. The initiative called for the fairer outcomes and the redirection of investment toward a more sustainable future. So why is it a question then? Why is it a question? Where's the conspiracy then? You believe it too. You're saying that it happened. Alright, weeks after the WS announcement, editorial Libertarian think tank, the Great Reset on Fox Business News. The rough outline of the plan is clear: completely destroy the global capitalist economy and reform the Western world. Yet, apart from a few isolated yelps in the right-wing echo chamber, the Great Reset failed to catch on as a fully-fledged conspiracy theory until Joe Biden's victory in early November, when Google Trends shows that searches for the term surged online. I don't think that that's true. I feel like it's been, something that's been a pretty clear and present problem for a while, and people have known about it since June, and you're only making it seem like it's a big deal. And the thing is that it became more and more clear and present and obvious as the lockdowns were being enforced for no real apparent reason, especially during the months when it was warmest and there was the least likelihood of disease transmission. So, I don't know. I can't really read The Guardian too much. It's starting to make me sick to my stomach. So we're going to go right to the World Economic Forum and see if what it is that we've read that's right or wrong, or what the opinions are that are justified or not. There is an urgent need for global stakeholders to cooperate in simultaneously managing the direct consequences of the COVID-19 crisis. To cooperate in simultaneous managing. So all of us need to cooperate and simultaneously do the same management styles because of the COVID-19 crisis. To improve the state of the World Economic Forum is starting the Great Reset Initiative. Oh, taking place in the context of the United Nations General Assembly, the World Economic Forum, fourth and the first time fully virtual, sustainable, blah, 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 ended September 24th. The context, the opportunity. Oh, see, it makes me sick. The COVID-19 crisis and the political, economic, and social disruption it has caused is fundamentally changing the traditional context for decision making. What? The traditional context for decision making is, how do I feed my family? How do I feed myself? How do I feed my animals? How do I keep myself warm enough not to die in the winter if that's a problem? How do I keep myself healthy if I get sick? It's not, there's no fundamental change in the traditional context for decision making. The inconsistencies, inadequacies, and contradictions of multiple systems. You mean the fact that in reality nothing's perfect? You can't have a perfect system that's never going to work, no matter how much you bureaucratize it? You're never going to create such a thing? From health and financial to energy and education are more exposed than ever amidst a global context of concern for lives, livelihoods, and the planet. See, they don't care about actually lives or livelihoods or the planet. But you can see that they don't care about the first two by saying the planet. Because if we cared about lives and livelihoods first and foremost, then we'd say, you know what, we're going to accept some load on the planet. We're going to accept that we're going to have landfills. We're going to accept this. We're going to accept that. You know, it's hard. It's hard to watch. Hard to read. Leaders find themselves at a historic crossroads, managing short-term pressures against medium and long-term uncertainties. And the opportunity is that as we enter a unique window of opportunity to shape the recovery, this initiative will offer insights. Let's not actually help people and just make it work. Let's instead use it as an opportunity. So if a few eggs need to be cracked to make a omelet, well, fuck it. I guess that's how we make an omelet. To shape the recovery, this initiative will offer insight to help inform all those determining in the future state of global relations. So if you don't want to be part, you're not going to be part of future state of global relations, by the way. That's why everyone's on board all across every fucking international space, probably. The direction of national economies, the priorities of societies, the nature of business models, and the management of a global commons. This is so lofty and so out of its mind that it has nothing to do with reality. Drawing from the vision and vast expertise of the leaders engaged across the forum's communities, the Great Reset Initiative has a set of dimensions to build a new social contract that honors the dignity of every human being. Except for the ones that we kill while we do it. Or the ones that disagree with us. Or the ones that feel that they shouldn't be part of, the changing of the inconsistencies and inadequacies and contradictions of the multiple systems. People who feel that things are working in a way that they enjoy. People, we don't care about their dignity. We only care about their dignity if they're on board. I don't know how much more of this I can actually look at. Find out about the Great Reset dialogues. There's a lot of information probably here, but I'm already on some horrible watch list for going on the World Economic Forum, so I think I'm going to call it here. This has been a pretty good, you can go and read or you can just go and look up some videos and people will give you a good understanding of what the Great Reset is supposed to be from the World Economic Forum's, view. But it's much of what we already read. And it's got the same ideas and concepts as Agenda 2030. It doesn't want private property. It doesn't want a whole series of things that, make it so that our world is actually a functional world where human beings can interact and exist. It imagines the world as a mathematical formula almost, and doesn't contribute to it any levels of true distinction for things like malice or things like kindness or things like care and devotion. It's going to be a very disturbing thing if they're able to enact this in any kind of way, because their end goal, if you believe them, that is to say, to make a new social contract that honors the dignity of every human being, if that's truly their end goal, that's a noble one. But I mean, I'm sure that was the end goal in theory of probably the communists that killed so many in Russia. So, are we going to go through this same thing again? Are we going to go through the same socialist insanity and inevitable destruction and downfall over the ideals of some men? Because even if everyone does it, everyone's involved, and there isn't anyone that isn't a part, it will still fail. Well, that's my final, take on the Great Reset. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a good day. In my view, as a kind of wrap-up, you should be against the idea of anyone resetting all of society to be a different form because they believe that they have the answer. Why don't I have the answer? Why don't you give me the right to have the answer? I'll decide it is completely different than what you imagined. Why are you the one that gets to be in control? And this is where you get into the reason why we have things the way they are with property rights and with individual rights. So there's nothing of value to be gained from this, and there's only loss. If you want to make jet propulsion, engines more efficient, you want to make flights more efficient, you want to make it so that they do things with less waste, you want to make it so they do things without even fuel, maybe they're electric planes, fine, let's do these things so that we have less overall waste, and let's try to make it so that we are at a lower overall pollution quotient. But those things really need to apply to everywhere, because China is much worse than we are in the burning of coal. India probably is very bad in pollutants as well. And it's really due to having so many people. And that is what it is. So, thanks again for watching. I'm going to go ahead and cut it here. Have a great day.